So, in this meetup today, what I'm going to present is how we can simplify service deployment with Kaima. So, Kaima, if you have heard about, or even if you have not heard about, is an open source solution which has been which is basically being nurtured at SAP, and then we basically donated to CNCF, and it's now basically part of a CNCF project. So from the ground being, it's an open source in technology. So so that is what we are going to also see in my discussions, that how it has been created from the ground up as a technology, as a solution to solve very complex challenges. So a bit about myself. So I'm working as a senior DevOps engineer with SAP Labs India, and I have been a speaker at the Open Source Summit with Linux Foundation. I have been speaker at the Hashi Talks and in the DevOps India Summit. I have been a very active community member in the Docker India group, and also in the CNCF Data Management User Group India. I speak around different topics ranging from containers, Kubernetes, cloud DevOps, DevSecOps, and then also some topics around serverless. So yeah, when I'll not be like when I'm not speaking, I do some blogging also around the PaaS, cloud native, and the serverless technologies. So in my pastime, I'd like to travel different places around the earth, though it's now not possible because of the COVID for the last, I think, almost 1.5 years or so. And I'm a big foodie by nature. Okay, so let us start about understanding that what is the current concern in the development space. So when we look from a developer's uh, side, so we see the dilemma that he or she is into. So first thing is that whenever so there is a lot of challenges that is experienced in using monolithic API extensions together with the microservices. So microservices may have deployed with this traditional API endpoint, while in case of monolithic, there might be a number of codependent services which might not have been stacked together. And there needs to have a lot of configurations, a lot of API adjustments to do. So that is one of the common challenges that has been seen, especially from the developer's perspective. The second is that whenever like we use any traditional platform, much of the time gets utilized in building up the platform to focus or to basically provide more development to allow the developers code to run, right? So that means like adjusting a number of places where that may include choosing the correct maybe compute size, choosing the correct runtime for the deployment, even choosing the correct tools which is necessary post deployment. So it basically takes a lot of time from the developer's perspective to focus more on the coding and to basically contribute more on the business logic. And the third is basically the serverless extensions to trigger different to trigger different events through an API or a function call. So currently, if we see that when we start interacting with the monolithic code, like some of the codes are not cloud native. That means they are not maintained in a manner that can be used in a way so that you can use any serverless function to trigger some events through it. So when we see this problems or these dilemmas, which we have also seen at SAP from the from the developer side, then there naturally comes that how or what would be the best solution that we can bring to the table that can basically helps to solve a lot of these challenges, maybe not all of them, but at least some of them. So here I introduce Kaima. Kaima is basically a platform which has been developed, as I mentioned, at SAP from the ground up in order to build a flexibility in deploying serverless functions together with microservices on a cloud native platform, which is Kubernetes. And it is basically so Kaima as a platform uses different set of open source cloud native tools. The specifically, or if I say the USP of this particular platform is that it knows the specific glue of how it can connect all these projects together. So I'll be discussing about what kind of projects actually it uses, but natively it uses all the relevant projects in terms of identity management, in terms of logging, in terms of eventing, in terms of serverless execution, in terms of monitoring, in terms of log tracing, everything from the cloud native ecosystem, which is preferably from CNCF side. And also it basically helps to simplify the creation and management of extensions for applications which is deployed on Kubernetes. So the main concern that what we try to drive or try to solve via through Kaima is to allow developers to create different extensions on the services that they deploy on Kubernetes, right? And to basically help that, we need to publish the applications using certain remote events that can be captured and through which the API can be called for, or that can be used via some other tools. So that is how Kaima basically provides this particular functionality. And then it also not only uses the extended it not only uses the inbuilt services that is applicable from the Kaima side, but also it helps to extend support to other third party services. Like for example, if we need to provision some service which is not available, but it is available on, let's say, GCP side, or let's say we are trying to use certain database from Azure side, so you can basically call them through the service catalog feature. And then there is something called as a broker implementation, which basically uh, helps to create a binding between the services and with the Kaima runtime. And as I mentioned, that this project is completely open source and has been donated by SAP to CNCF. So it is now basically a part of the CNCF ecosystem now. So when we look from the technology side of how Kaima has been built up, so there are three different layers, which is called as an application connector, the serverless, and the service catalog. So if we see from to the left, it's basically it's the development programming framework that it is supporting. In together, it is supporting almost all the native open source tools that is available from the cloud native side. Whether you're using messaging, you can use NATS. Whether you are using the whether you want to publish your events, then you can use the Knative eventing for this purpose. As a platform, you can use Kubernetes as one of the orchestrator. For service mesh, you can rely on Istio. So all these technologies are glued together. But the good part about is that it remains completely abstracted from the developer perspective. So it is completely uh, on the Kaima, that how it basically exposes this interfaces to the developer side. And it can actually basically interact with multiple cloud platforms, and it is not just limited to using, let's say, Google Cloud. Or you can actually use services from Azure, you can use services from Amazon as well. Also, SAP has their own Kubernetes platform, which is provided by Gartner. So you can actually use SAP Gartner solution to also host Kaima as a solution. So the uniqueness of Kaima lies in the glue that basically holds all these major cloud native open source projects together in the sense that not only it uses this open source project, but also it builds certain connectors that can basically use some of these projects, some of these solutions to basically build an end-to-end service mapping policy, through which the enterprise application can be extended easily and used by the developers. So when we talk about using the services, so what Kaima particularly use, like for monitoring, alerting, it is using Prometheus and Grafana. For logging, it's using the Loki based tool. For eventing, it uses both the NATS messaging as well as the Knative eventing. Asset management, Kaima currently uses Minio as the storage for the data asset management for the storage part. Service mesh is based currently on Istio, so you get all the best features around the service mesh, which is like basically the TLS encryption around the communication that is happening. Then observability, I mean the secure connection, the and also basically enabling different other services to communicate within Kaima. That is also possible. Tracing is done via Jaeger as the primary tool, and authentication is completely an SSO based authentication, which is supported by, both by DEX as well as the OAuth 2 mechanism. So when we talk about how Kaima solves these challenges, so basically Kaima has this three different component layer. One is called the application connector, the second is the serverless, and the third is the service catalog. Application connector is where basically it allows secure communication to happen between the systems which are provisioned to the platform, uh, to connect with the Kaima runtime, so that the end APIs and the events can be exposed through the Kubernetes service catalog as a feature. So in this case, when we talk about the Kubernetes service catalog, it is deployed as a custom resource definition, which is again managed within the Kaima. For the serverless part, the main intention here is like when you get the API in call, you can basically write certain extensions for those applications, and maybe you can use this API extension also at later point of time to trigger any business logic through certain functional API calls, and all this can be made possible within Kaima itself, because it uses the best-in-class serverless technologies within the platform, and very well it is exposable. I mean, like you have the authority, you can set certain policies to determine that which API calls you want to basically set through and which you don't want. Maybe there are certain remote API calls which you don't want to be accessed from outside your service, so that you can basically configure through Kaima, which gives the added policies to that basically help you to drive that. The third is the service catalog. Service catalog is basically where it can be like some of the services are not natively available from the platform, but you want to use them, and those services can be provided from hyperscalers such as Google Cloud Platform or AWS or Azure. And basically, Kaima allows for easy integration of the services through the service brokers, which are maintained by these hyperscalers itself. So for example, in this case, when we are deploying when we are externalizing an application such as an WordPress, we basically register one of the custom tenant to the application connector. So this custom tenant means there's a system that gets enabled, and it gets informed, or basically the Kaima runtime knows that this particular system is present. It registers that into the platform side, and then from there, once it is basically registered, it will expose a set of APIs, specifically the remote APIs, from where it would be basically sending the event or to any serverless platform. There would be a service catalog, as I told, that would basically use the set of services which are exposed via the service broker through an AWS, Azure, or Google platform, and that can directly use that events which are stored into the serverless platform, into certain database, obviously, to fetch and do certain actions on top of it. I mean, in terms of the business logic implementation. So when we look about the Kaima and the Knative integration, it is completely managed via the eventing and the functioning part. So when Kaima evolved as a platform, it was basically or I can say that it forked the main Knative component that was responsible for the internal messaging and the eventing side. And so right now in the latest version which is running, which is I think it's with 1.24.5, it uses almost the latest upstream version of the Knative eventing in its component. And basically each of the components that works within the Kaima are not dependable with one another. That means like you can basically uh, do an update, or maybe you can think about yeah, you can update those components as and when needed based on the releases that it supports. So the platform what it provides, it's simply the application integrator, so that I mean the connector, which basically helps to derive the specific requirement for the events that needs to be published into the platform site. So installing Kaima uh, is very straightforward. Yeah, I mean, though it's a complex tool having multiple solutions, you can basically deploy Kaima for your local development purpose using a light feature of the Kaima, because there are a lot of there are a lot of open source solutions that are embedded into it. So for a very development purpose, you can just simply install the lighter version that will give you some of the basic services that is needed to run your application. So it is not so every installation has a profiling that is added to it. So if you're using a profiling feature, then it will basically use the development profile for this case, while for the production case you can set up Kaima directly on a Kubernetes cluster that is currently supported on Google Kubernetes Engine, or on Azure Kubernetes Service, or directly on the ACP Gardener solution. So I'm not going through the setup process because obviously that is there in the documentation. But once you set up your Kaima, then basically you get all these components which are listed. Like for example, you will be installing the uh, cluster essential tools. You'll be installing Istio. You will be installing Dex as the security identifier tool for the SSO authentications. You will be installing the API gateway. You will be installing the Rafter service catalog, as I was mentioning, which basically exposes different services from other hyperscalers. And also you will be installing the Helm broker eventing for the Knative eventing part, the logging, and then the other serverless solutions as well. So I mean it is a complete bunch of a whole open source solutions that are deployed in Kaima, and that basically gives more agility and flexibility for the developer to uh, to take care of their code, not to focus much on the development side and not on the platform side, sorry, to understand about what are the base tools that can be used to in different deployment phases actually, because that is taken care by Kaima itself. Okay, so I have talked much about Kaima, so let's see a quick demo around it. So I have basically SAP BTP Cockpit. So SAP BTP Cockpit is the Cloud Foundry based solution for SAP, and we name it as the Business Technology Platform Cockpit. And I have created one sub account which is on Azure, and the purpose. Okay, I think it's to just refresh it. The purpose of using this account in and not going traditionally with the Kaima setup, because normally Kaima setups takes quite a long time, and we don't have so much time in the session to show. So what I want to show that how we can quickly deploy any e-commerce based applications on Kaima. So in this case, once we go to any sub account, so it can be your Cloud Foundry sub account also in your corresponding CF space. you would be seeing a lot of entitles that is there. So in the entitles, you will see something called as a Kyma runtime, which should be visible. And this Kyma runtime is required to enable the Kyma environment. So that is the environment that we have. And this is together with the Cloud Foundry environment as well, where I am now logged into. So now if I just go and click to the or go take you to the dashboard, so you will see that it automatically takes the SSO login in this case. And what basically Kyma gives you is the complete platform to understand that how you're going to deploy the application. You can basically create a namespace and then go ahead and deploy your applications for the sec. And then so basically once you deploy that, then all the Kubernetes native resources gets deployed here. So we'll see how it happens. So what I'll do for this case, I will create trial namespace with Kaima, and I'll just give as env equals to dev Kaima. So let's create. So this is now created. As you can see, once it is created, it automatically understood that it's a Kubernetes based resource that is created because Kaima is automatically running on Kubernetes, and so it will basically give you all the native things. Like there is something which is not very native to Kubernetes, such as functions, and this is for triggering any triggering any API call or an event through certain function call that is there. Even through repositories also we can do that. And then we have the pods, replica set deployments, but I'll go into that later. Let's basically go and see. So I have a e-commerce application, a sample applications that I want to deploy and see how it gets registered in the in the Kaima platform. So I'll just show you maybe. Uh, I have the X application mock. So this is just a uh, commerce application or trial commerce application. So as you can see that it's just a mock application where it will expose a set of events that can be used later on by the developers to build extensions actually. So what I will do, I have basically so now if I go into the file here, I will deploy my YAML configuration. So I will upload the YAML file from here. So there are two YAML files that I'll configure. So first is the ktis.yaml. So, but before deploying, maybe it would be easy to show what is there inside that. So maybe I'll just go. Okay, so I'll go to the deployment, and there's this two files. So let me just show. So the deployment file is nothing. It's just a simple application deployment that I'll be creating with an app called Commerce Mock. We just will create one replica just for the trial purpose. It exposes a set of containers where I'll be basically creating the application for my case, and then I'll be exposing the application here through the service actually. Also, I need to create a persistent volume claim that would be required for the application to write the data into it. So through Kaima, you have the option also to directly deploy the YAML files, I mean the deployment files. So in this case, I'll be using this and I'll deploy the first file, which is ktis.yaml. And I'll see the deployment has already started and the pods would somehow be in pending state. So since I'm here, I can also download the kubeconfig so that I can basically logged in via the my CLI as well. So let me go back into the CLI. and sorry. So let me export the kubeconfig here, and then let us check the namespace whether it got created or not. Yeah, so I have the dev trial Kaima there. Let us see the pod status. Okay, maybe I didn't copy this. Yeah, so it's already running, and I think, yeah, so here also, as you can see, it's also running. So here you get the state, and also the good thing about Kaima is that you can directly see the logs as well. So these logs are being enabled um, uh, uh, through Kaima itself, from the platform itself. And also, if you go in the deployments, you will be able to see the deployment that has been created. And also you can take any action. I mean, if you want to edit some parameters, you can directly go and edit that as well. So that is very much available. So similarly, it deployed some services here, and this is the services. However, I need to basically allow the application to talk over the internet without any authorization in place, because this is just a trial application, and this commerce application has certain it's not self-signed. Actually, it's has some certificates which needs to be authenticated. But for this case, just for this purpose, what I can do, I can simply go again to the namespace dev trial Kaima, and I will deploy another YAML file, which is called the kaima.yaml, and this will basically create an API service API rule uh, here. So maybe we can check the file as well. Uh, so commerce, sorry. Let me go cat of xf and then deployment. Okay, commerce mock, then deploy, and then Kaima. So that is simple file where I'm basically creating one rule. Basically, I'm using the API gateway feature here to expose the application without any authorization that is needed. So as you can see, it has already created the host path here. So I can simply click that. It will take some time for the application to run, to basically come up and give a response. So that's why it's just sending the connection failure response here. We'll wait for some time. So the deployment should be fine. The pods are also deployed, and hopefully it should come up soon. We have to wait. In the meantime, I can show the catalog. So this is the catalog which I was telling about, the service catalogs, which are available that can be used readily if needed for the application. And for that, you just have to basically use one of the catalog, create a particular service instance that would be then used by the broker to bind to the application that you are creating. So that once you basically create that service instance, it will be populated here with a specific service class, the plan, and the bound application. It's almost similar the concept of how we use the services in Cloud Foundry, or if you have seen like that. And this is the brokers. So the broker is basically, if you are basically using the Helm broker here, we can publish it here and use it directly for the application side. So these are the secret maps that we are using, and these are directly coming from the deployment that we have done. The config maps that is required for this case, and auth to client. So we haven't created any auth to client for this demo purpose. Let me just try again. Yeah, and this time, as you can see that my app has come up. It has just published some of the local APIs that it is already available from the application itself, which we can directly, which the developers can use as an extension for further building their services. Now, the next thing is I need to basically create a system in my account, which I want to publish in Kaima, because that would basically be using this application. So for this case, what I do, I basically create a system here. So I have to register a system. So I'll register a system. Maybe I'll give a name called as trial mock commerce app. And then I'll just mention the type as SAP Commerce Cloud for this case, because this trial account is running on the Commerce Cloud. And I'll get a token. So this is very important. Using this token, basically, we can submit the request to Kaima, which can identify that how or how the system is going to be or how this app is going to be used via the Kaima. So basically, what it does, it once we basically creates a token, it also needs something called as a formation. Formation is something which basically tells that how the system should be connecting to the Kaima runtime, and you can create one formation, and then you can add multiple systems together within a single formation, but there should be one formation which needs to be always created. So let us create one trial formation. I'll select the sub account as trial where I'm in, and the sub system which I've just created, which is the mock commerce application. So till the time you see that I haven't used the token, it will be in a pending because it has not been registered at the Kaima site. So now what I will do, I will go here in the application. I will try to connect, and I'll give the token value that I have copied, and then I'll start connecting. So what it does, it basically connects this system to the Kaima with the application that needs to publish. And there is something called as register all the local APIs to Kaima, so that I'll be exposing all the APIs to the Kaima, so that we know that what are the basically the APIs that are being exposed from the remote side, which the developers can use. So as you can see, once I've registered, this remote API also gets enabled, so that basically helps to connect to other set of monolithic application as well if needed, right? That is not there in the Kaima, but we can add their APIs into this platform. And so the registration process takes some moment, and then at the end it should show me it's a successful. So it's now registering all the APIs that it is being able to fetch for that particular application. So it's done. So once the registration is successful, it will come with the progress done. And here, if we go now in the remote APIs, we can see a list of APIs. And as you can see, its type is unknown because it has come from an external source, not directly published from the local application end. But here you have the option to edit and change it as per your requirement. Also, at the same time, you can create or trigger a business logic via by creating a new event in the directly from the Kaima side as well, or you can create a new API endpoint as well. Now, once we do that, then we go to the trial account, and we should see the system to be here as registered. So now it identifies. So the mutual authentication happens, the communication is successful, and it is now able to see the system in the Kaima platform. Now here, if we go into the namespace in the application system, the system should also be in a serving state. That means once we click that, we should see the list of APIs that it is publishing, and these are the APIs which can be directly used via by any other application owner to extend for his services as required actually. So these are the list of services which are now published, and it always shows in a serving state because it uses the eventing model to publish all the events directly to the services site. So this was all about the demo. As we can see, the my app is also registered here that I created, um, and then it's also in the serving state. So let us now then go to the next slide. So yeah, why we should use Kaima, because it gives a greater flexibility for the developers to not to break their heads to know the different set of tools that need to be used for the platform to extend their applications and services, even using serverless to build their own to basically drive their own business logic in developing the application. Rather, they can focus more in uh, building their business logic to create their end application. Kaima is completely written in Go, and also because all the other open source tools that it uses has a very lower footprint, so it reduces the upfront maintenance cost, which is required compared to any other programming languages. Also, it is very easy to customize through serverless and event driven functional calls, which we have seen through the platform. Also, allowing the developers to focus much more on the business logic and less on the platform nuisances or like setting up the platform or doing the upgrade. Everything is taken care from Kaima, while they just simply focus on writing the code and deploying the code with a proper business logic. Some of the reference that I use for the Kaima, and this is the Kaima project, so maybe I can quickly show. Oh, okay, yeah. So this is the complete project here. The GitHub link is also there, and basically, if you go here, you can see all the components that is being used. You can go to the overview and can understand about Kaima more about in details. What are the specific functionality of each of the components, the just that I discussed. And then for the installation, there's a complete steps that would basically be needed. So these are some of the components which I was discussing, which it install, and the profile is something which I talked about, basically using the production profile or the development profile, depending whether you are using Kaima for evaluation purpose or you are directly configuring Kaima for the production usage. And then basically you can use Kaima to set up locally on maybe on Minikube, preferably, or you can use Kaima to install on a cluster that can be supported on GKE Gardener. And these are the complete steps. There are some certain good tutorials to be for that one can use. Um, yeah, here, like how we can basically use a service locally without using Docker, and all the things can be seen through Kaima actually once you set up the Kaima platform. So that's all for my talk, and thank you, and I'm open to questions now.
Thank you so much, Suman. So I've seen several questions on the chat. For example, Jules was asking, she's interested in when would you use Cloud Foundry versus Schema and vice versa, and when you have both of them available. Let me just, am I sharing? Could you please stop sharing your screen, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Okay, and right to answer, you can use Cloud Foundry services in Kaima through the service catalog, and also everyone was so happy to be here. Iman had to leave, and I thought there was another question at the beginning. Let me just quickly before every let me launch the poll, and while we're waiting the results, please, if anyone has a question. Alex was asking, so what is Kima relation to SAP? And yeah, so if anyone has another question, you can just raise your hand and ask to someone. Okay, so Ahmed Abdallah is have a question. Go ahead, Ahmed. Thank you.
Hi, I wanted to ask that I remember Kima
Hi.
used to think of having a event registry inside the cluster. Is that still the case? Do you still have a
Yes,
registry of events?
yes, yes, yes. There still is a event registry that is present, and also I think with the latest development, they have enabled services to be exposed from outside as well. I mean, uh, I'm not very much sure, but I think that is there actually, because I am not part of the Kima maintainer team actually, but what we use a little bit older version where the registry is still present within Kima. Hope that answers Ahmed your question.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah.
My side, go ahead. Thank you.
Hello, I have a
Emmanuel?
question here.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. I was waiting for you to call me, but yes, I was looking obviously at your demonstrations, and I saw that there were at least 3 namespaces for Kima. I'm assuming, I think the CRDs also were
Yes.
Kima specific. So it seems like you are, first of all, I would like to have an idea of the footprint of Kima, and also in terms of CRDs. Do I need to learn a new set of CRDs, or for example, if you use Istio, can I go directly to use the Istio CRDs? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, so basically, if you want to just use Kaima for your business logic, or for your business driven requirement, you don't actually need to know the CRDs much in details. But like if you have, if you want to bring a new set of CRDs into the place, that is also possible via Kima. So they basically allow to, so if you are configuring the Kima platform by yourself, you are given 2 different roles. One is basically more on the Kubernetes namespace administrator role, and the other is more about the developer role that they give. So maybe I can show, maybe I can share screen.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So let me just take here and okay. Go to the namespace. So as you can see, there are this namespaces that they are created along with the roles and the role binding in the cluster roles. So there are this Kima namespace admin which is given, and then there is another, I think a developer or something should be there, but it's somewhere there. But yeah, with this particular namespace admin, you can have the privilege to use your own custom resource within Kima. That is very well possible. Also you can use the default one, because that is basically coming up with the Istio site itself. I mean, if you are not doing any customization, you get the default one, whatever it's there from the platform.
Very good. I have quite a few follow-up questions actually, but when you talk about service catalogs,
yeah.
So are you talking about API points that are accessible through the network and possibly the API is published? That's what you're talking about. I've seen some other models where, for example, there is a sidecar, and it was not Istio, but I think it was from Microsoft, where they were using the sidecar on all remote services, let's say, RDS database on AWS, will be accessible through a local host at a specific port through the sidecar. So is this what you're talking about, or are you talking more about there is a network connectivity and an API that is published to the developers?
No, actually, for the service catalog, what we meant here is more from the services, from the development, like for the development purpose. If you need an external service that you need to bind to, let's say you need a separate messaging cluster, right, that you need to add to the platform, then basically you can use one of the available services that can directly come from any of the hyperscaler, whether it can be an Azure or can be Google Cloud, and these are then facilitated by the service broker, which is that is running inside the Kaima platform. That is nothing to do with the endpoints as such. I mean, not the endpoints related to any sidecar maintenance or something like that. Yeah.
Another question, so I'm going in different, very different topics. In terms of multi-tenancy, apparently Kaima has nothing to do with multi-tenancy. Here, if I'm working on Kubernetes, apparently with Kaima that's the case, I can potentially see all the namespaces, if I have other people that have their own application namespace, right? So then I have to do the airbags at the Kubernetes level, or is Kaima kind of as a way to hide the Kubernetes airbags and infrastructure?
I don't think it is currently possible to create a multi-tenancy on Kaima directly, but still I'm not very much sure on that, because I may go back to the maintainers to ask whether they are planning this as a part of the next release or not. Currently in the release, it is not there, but it may come as a future request soon. But maybe I'll be able to share that details some point later, but not right at this moment.
So yeah, so just to comment on what you just said, on my side, I'm working on something similar, but I have to offer this as a platform, as a service, and I'm trying to hide all the infrastructure layer, right? And of course, I need to have multi-tenancy. So the cluster belongs to me. It does not belong to the applications. But in your case, what you demoed at least today was the clusters was deployed by you, and you installed Kaima on it. Okay. Okay.
Yes. Since we are managing the Kaima itself, so maybe it's that we have already the runtime that is enabled. But let's say if you're giving it to our end users or the customers, then possibly we won't basically ask them to deploy the Kaima on their platform. It would be already deployed. What they will get might be the dashboard through which they can basically go ahead and deploy their applications directly. Yep.
Okay, thank you so much. If anyone else has a question, if not, okay, thank you so much everyone for being here. It was a great interaction. I know, Suma, you were a bit nervous, but but it was pretty great. It was awesome. And I also wanted to remember you that we're going to have this presentation on the YouTube channel. So keep following up on our monthly meetups. And if you want to present, please go ahead. You can just send an email or as a private message. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you around in the next meetups.